91X.
Jimmy Cliff, welcome to San Diego. I know you've been here before a few times.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
You are beyond legendary status at this point. I know that obviously asking the legend if you know you're a legend sounds kind of weird, but do you understand the depth of how much you've created at this point in your artistic work at this point? Is it hit you yet what you've done?
Maybe not. Maybe not. I have kind of recognized the impact of the music that I contributed to create and establish, and the impact that it has had internationally, leading it, being at the forefront of it, and still around making just as valuable or even more valuable music than that. So I don't know if that is the depth of it all, but that's about what I recognize.
The bizarre thing to me is, and maybe it's not bizarre, but the amazing thing to me is the fact that the early part of your career, you kicked down some doors that weren't even doors when you were kicking them down. They were walls.
Yes.
And you did things that a lot of people kind of don't realize was very punk rock at the time, even though punk rock was 10 years away from being even thought of in the first place. But obviously you've done some things that a lot of people would sit there and go like, I didn't realize you did that. Yeah. But you've done, and now you're back. You've done some stuff with Tim Armstrong, right?
Right.
Which is kind of like the new version, if you will, of what you started back then.
Yeah.
Is it weird to be recognized by these? And I mean it with respect to him, that he's a kid. Do you feel like do you understand where he's coming from and why he wants to work with you and that kind of stuff?
Well, having worked with him, it makes me understand it better. But it's not weird. It's more like gratifying to see that and to be here doing that. Knowing that I have done a lot and I have a lot more to do.
Well, that's what the one song we played on the radio today. The one more.
Yeah.
It's way more than one more, isn't it? You've got way more than one more to go.
The one more I'm talking about is the one more like now. I'm going to take up the mantle again and go. So the one more is not just one now. It's like a distance again. It's like a new Act 2. It's Act 2.
It's Act 2.
Yes.
So it's what you started in 60. What year did you start? 60.
Well, about
You were 14 when you first started doing
about
it.
62 somewhere there.
62, but you were 14 years old. So basically, from 14 to now, it's been almost 40 plus 50 years almost, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna go for another 50.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
we would love it.
Absolutely. And for the things that I have accomplished, I think the doors that I've and the walls that I've kicked down, there are greater ones to be done now.
Right.
Strange as it may sound. But,
Can you give me an example of what you still think needs to be rectified at this point?
Look at how the music industry has changed today. The music industry has changed like 360 degrees.
Right.
To get one thing done, you have to work like 2 times, 3 times as hard now. Even though with the technology, you could say, well, okay, a lot more doors are open now. Big companies are not got the same power as they did before. At the same time, to make a big #1 hit, it's a little more difficult.
Right.
Even for someone like me. So there are doors, but I love challenge. I love a challenge.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let me ask you a question. I when I sit down with some of the newer artists, I ask them what their influences were when they were growing up, when they were kids. What made them go pick up a guitar in the first place? And then we go to YouTube and we try to find a clip of the artist that they mention. Are there artists that, when you were a kid, what was the reason that you said, I have to learn how to play this instrument or that instrument? And what made you say, I've got to go create? Who was that person that did that for you?
Well, I just had a love for music, for the art. In school, whenever it was like academic things, I wouldn't pay much attention.
Right.
And whenever it's anything to do with art, I'm alive. I'm awake. So I was drawn to the art. I was born to do the arts. However, there were people along the way who inspired me. Local people in Jamaica, Derek Morgan, Prince Buster, Joe Higgs, and international people like Sam Cooke, Ray Charles, Smiley Lewis, Professor Longhair, all of these people, Fats Domino, So there were lots of these people that inspired me.
So when you're growing up in Jamaica as a kid, obviously record stores, they couldn't carry every single record in the world. What do you remember going into the first time? And obviously sound systems were a big thing back then. So whoever bought the records and played them for people would be influences. But do you remember finding a certain record that I'll go find this on YouTube? A certain record that just I have to do this. This is my calling.
No, in my village, Somerton, there was a jukebox in a bar, and that was like the thing that turned me on to a lot of international music, because we didn't own a radio until later on. And so when I heard all those songs, music on the jukebox, people used to buy me a Coke to sing the songs along with the jukebox. So, I 2 minutes I learned all the songs that was on the jukebox, So that was it, I heard the people I just mentioned, I heard all of them on the jukebox.
Now, what is it with tons of reggae artists, even from, probably post when you started doing this stuff, mid 60s, that Motown became, a lot of people did reggae versions of Motown songs. What was the reason for that? Do you remember why everybody's like, oh, that's an amazing song? Was it something that just the Motown singles were more available?
Well, in Jamaica, in the Motown era, I kind of went to the UK. And so I missed that era in Jamaica when people were doing over the Motown stuff. But however, I think there is a part of the Jamaican tradition in the music to cover things.
Right.
But they try to make it their own. And I respect that.
Correct.
Yeah.
On your first trip to England, did you realize how much, I don't want to say, because obviously Jamaica at that time was still controlled for the most part. It's been 50 years now since independence, but it was still really controlled by the British back then. And a lot of people say that, obviously Chris Blackwell going down there and bringing reggae back to, the English was probably the best thing that happened to England, because it actually made music 10 times better, because they were not that good at that point. When you got there, do you remember how well you were received the first time through?
Well, I kind of helped to establish the reggae music live, and as was ska then.
Right.
I kind of helped to establish it live, because I picked my British band. I teach them really how to play the the drop and the ska
Right.
and everything. I had to teach them how to play that, because they were used to playing rock and roll and R&B. So that was it then. I went back. It was the era of the Stones and the Beatles and all those people. So I really had to introduce my music in the clubs to them, while at the same time doing some R&B with that.
Amazing stuff. You've obviously met some of your, I don't want to say the heroes, but the guys that your contemporaries, from the Beatles, Stones. I mean, they've all got massive respect for you and everything that has, pretty much come out of Jamaica. Any good stories you can tell me about meeting any of these guys for the first time or the last time you saw them?
About 4 weeks ago, I think it was, I did a show in Hyde Park with Paul Simon, Hyde Park in London, and Paul McCartney was there, and someone introduced me to him, and he said, "Irie man," he said, I'm reading a lot of good things about in the paper. So he has down the Jamaican accent very well, and to say he's reading, I said, well, I didn't expect you would be reading reviews and all of those things. In my mind, I was saying,
right.
So you're reading reviews, because I was getting a lot of good reviews on the new record and all over there, and on that. So that was kind of an eye opener for me,
Right.
to see, because I really respected the Beatles. They were brilliant songwriters, and revolutionaries in their own way. They changed a lot of things. So that was like 4 weeks ago. With,
Right.
Paul
Well,
McCartney.
the rumor had at one point that Obladia Oblada was written about Desmond Decker, and because it really had that jaunty, cross beat to it.
I don't know. And Desmond also said it too. I mean, when I
Well, Desmond, yeah, okay, he claimed it, but
Yeah.
and to me that's the great way to put the legend together if he
Yeah.
claims it first.
So I don't know. I really don't know. Desmond said that one, and also another song that they had when Desmond was at number one with Israelites. They
The first time, the number one.
The first time
That was
the Beatles came with a song
right.
called "Get Back," and Desmond said, they're making that song about me. They want to knock me off. And I want to get back.
Because he's had that song's been to the top of the charts almost 3 times now.
Oh, yes.
The original version and then the
Exactly.
Stiff Records version of it.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this: who in the future? Obviously, you've worked with a ton of people in the past. Who would you want to work with now that you haven't had a chance to work with?
The way I worked with people in the past, I worked with Cat Stevens and come right up now to Tim Armstrong, all the people I could name. I never really had it in mind that I really want to work with that person or that person. I love when things happen organically, like how they have all happened. So when it happens like that, I know they want it and I want it, and it just happened. So I don't really have anyone in mind. I love a lot of people in the R&B world. I love a lot of people in the rap world, even though we started the rap. I love a lot of people in the rock and
But it
roll.
wasn't called rapping then, was it?
No, toasting.
It was called toasting,
Yeah.
which people don't quite understand how that thing worked
The
out.
sound
But
system, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So there's nobody in particular. The reason I bring it up is because I had a chance to interview Robert Plant about 5 years ago, and the song
I
they
saw him
wrote.
recently
Did you see him? Where did you see him? In Austin?
in Austin.
He was.
Introduced me.
He was telling me the reason. Oh, he introduced you on stage.
Yeah.
Well, he was telling me the reason that they wrote the song Jamaica, which is DYERMAKER. It was because they loved reggae music, but they took an old Rosie and the Original song, and Rosie was from San Diego here, and they redid it in their way to make it like an homage to Jamaica at that point. And I always thought that maybe Robert Plant would be somebody that would. Did he ask you, say you want to do something together, or was he?
Story about Robert Plant now. I had a band called the Shakedown Sounds when I lived in the UK. And that band was from the same area, Kidderminster,
Right.
where Robert Plant was from. So he used to come and watch our show before
Before he was.
Yeah, he used to come and watch our show. So when we met recently, we talked about those times. But that was all. That was all we talked
Well,
about.
now that you've got another 50 years to go,
Yeah.
I'm hoping you work that one out.
All right, I'll focus on it.
Beautiful. Jimmy Cliff, thank you very much.
Bless it.
Thank you.
All right, bless.